For more, Daniele Albertazzi joins us from Birmingham in the UK. He's a political scientist at the university there. Thanks so much for speaking to us. First, tell us, what are your expectations for this election? Is it likely that the far-right nationalists will pull ahead?
Well, I think the realistic expectation is that they will get about perhaps 30% of the seats in the European Parliament. Of course, it also depends how we define Eurosceptics, in the sense that you've talked about a specific group which has kind of converged around the figure of Matteo Salvini, the leader of the Lega and now interior minister in Italy. But there are other parties in the that will be represented in the parliament that have very critical positions on the EU, and they could actually ally with this group that you just mentioned on specific issues. So it also depends on how you define it. But in terms of this group, you could expect them perhaps to overall get about 30%, and the center-left and center-right plus the liberals together will most certainly be able to push ahead with initiatives if they find an agreement. So at this stage, I don't think that this group will kind of manage to control the agenda or anything like that.
Still, though, I mean, almost a third, then, you're saying, of the seats there would be controlled by EU skeptics. Where do you think that leaves the EU at what some consider a pretty fragile time for the body in itself?
Yeah, I think in terms of being able to kind of drive major decisions, I think at this stage, after this election, the so-called mainstream parties, if we want to use that term, will still be in the driving seat. However, it clearly shows that there is an increasing opportunity for Eurosceptic parties to do well. And also, one thing that is important is the fact that these parties have been very good at driving the agenda on issues such as, for instance, immigration. And I think we can certainly expect them to be able to shape debates even more after this election, also thanks to what is expected to be a good result for them. There is something that we need to underline, though, which is very important, precisely because these parties are usually not just populist and Eurosceptic, but usually they're also nationalist. They don't always agree with each other on several issues. For instance, one example is whether Europe should increase its structural funds that go particularly to Southern Europe or Central and Eastern European countries, right? So Salvini is in favor of it, and you can expect the German AfD to be against. But also on issues such as, for instance, the relationship with Russia. Salvini has been very open about his friendship with Putin's ruling party. And, the Lega is very open about the fact that he wants a completely new relationship between the EU and Russia. This actually sounds like a very dangerous kind of talk from the perspective of another party that is always defined as a populist and conservative, and that is Law and Justice in Poland.
Okay.
So it's also, it needs to be underlined that, we can't expect these parties, whether they are in or out Salvini's new group, to always agree. It depends what we are talking about,
right.
What is the topic.
It's an interesting irony you point out there, a multinational alliance of nationalists, kind of an oxymoron. Okay, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us from Birmingham.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.